let's get it going here while looking back at the weekend that was. All right, as we do each and every week, we look back and find out what we learned from this past weekend. So, Mikey B, we'll start with you. What did you learn this weekend?
That nobody can definitively tell me what is pass interference. The refs don't know. Teams don't know. Eagles Jaworski definitely doesn't know. He thinks that's championship pedigree. What is pass interference?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm sure we're going to continue to question it as the year goes on. At least for some teams, the referees really don't know what it is. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a broader conversation, not just pass interference, but the and we talk about it every year. The execution of penalties and when things are called, when are they not called. How are things enforced, even within individual games? It's been an ongoing problem in this league. I mean, in other sports as well. I mean, the baseball umpires and balls and strikes and all of that is just is laughable at best. But
I will say the last 2 weeks watching Bengal games, and obviously I sat here on this show last week and acknowledged the fact that the fourth and forever was pass interference. He was obviously there early, but he was playing the football. Last night, that I don't know why they didn't call that on the T. Higgins 2-point conversion attempt.
Yeah,
I don't know that I'll ever get that definitive answer. And then Sunday night in Atlanta, I don't even remember who it was from the Chiefs, basically tackling Kyle Pitts on 3rd and goal.
I think
not
Pitts
even
needed a hug. I think I heard when we made the cutback route. He goes, "I need a hug," and there was
he found it. Yeah, he found the hug. So at the end of the day, it's acknowledging when it's wrong and when it's the right call, like I did last Sunday when the Bengals lost because of the penalty. But then watching the referees just blatantly miss 2 really bad ones on prime time. It wasn't like these games were. It wasn't like these are 1:00 games where you have, Jets fans or Panthers fans that are upset about a pass interference call. This is supposed to be the brightest stage that you have to show the game of football, and you blatantly just can't figure it out. It's a problem.
Yeah. It's and again, it's execution. It's the execution of enforcement, when it's enforced, who it's enforced on, is baffling. Sometimes some would call it coincidental. But guys, any other thoughts from the panel on the enforcement of calls so far this year?
It's par for the course for the Chiefs, anyway.
Standard.
Right.
I mean, it's not a good look. I don't know if you want to say, you got to come across as a league and say, like, either these guys are going to be allowed to play and they're going to be allowed to jab and they're going to be allowed to, make plays on the ball, sometimes on the receiver, and we're going to give a little bit, or everything's a penalty. And then you got to stick to it. And I don't care if it's Pat Mahomes throwing it. I don't care if it's Andrew Dalton throwing it. Like, whoever's throwing the pass, if that receiver is messed with. And personally, if you're going one way or the other, I would much rather see them let them play. I don't think it should go quite as much as, throwing a shoulder block into somebody trying to make a catch in the end zone. But, maybe there's a happy medium somewhere. But, I'd hate to see them go, we'll call everything and just kind of, let the flags decide everything. I don't know if I'd agree with that. But there's got to be some kind of standardization or, a midweek training. Get all the officials to Indianapolis. Let's just try this again. But something's got to give.
Yeah. It's my thing has always been, if you're gonna call a game tight and you're gonna call just about everything, then call it that way on both sides for all 4 quarters, all 9 innings, all 3 periods, whatever. EJ, a period is what they have in hockey. I didn't know if you knew that. But
DJ's familiar with periods.
You can't call it one way for one team, one way for another. something that should be a penalty that is a penalty in the first quarter, should not be not a penalty in the fourth, and so on and so forth. And there's going to be mistakes made, but when it seems to be ongoing, repeated for certain teams in certain situations, that's when a lot of people call things into question. Joe says, for all the conspiracy theorists who believe the NFL has a script,
that's so true.
Doing anything to dispel that. Yeah, you're not wrong. Speaking up in the comments here of script writers, Devin says, what I learned this week is whoever is writing the NFL script hate the Miami Dolphins.
Damn.
Yeah,
that's tragic, man.
So, they must actually be Dolphins fans if they hate the Dolphins. Then, EJ, what did you learn this week?
What I learned is, and no one's talking about this, really, be honest with you, but what I learned in the last 2 weeks, honestly, is that I think the Green Bay Packers are going to be a massive problem once Jordan Love is back. This team is better than I thought they were. Like what they're doing, and granted, I know the 2 wins are against lesser teams, the Colts, the Titans, we get all that, but what they're doing, the weapons around Malik Willis, and being able to elevate that roster right now. I think when we get to December and January, I'm starting to believe this team's going to be an NFC title game, honestly. That talent, the talent, I don't care. The talent around that team. Yes, that's right. Start up early. I think the talent that team, dude. I think that they're going to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFC.
So
I think I've seen enough
at this point.
I know, Matt. Welcome back, buddy. How you doing?
So
hey, the Vikings are 3-0. Are they gonna? Is that who they're playing? Because they're 3-0.
We will know. Well, I see we'll know more this Sunday because they play.
We got to learn
obviously.
more. We got to see more.
But
right?
I know that
team of last week.
I'm just saying that roster is much better than I thought it was.
I mean, there were also the sprinkled in like EJ safe fail words that he can come back to. I said if they allegedly once Jordan Love comes back,
it took you 4 years to figure me out, man.
Possibly potentially make them a scary team.
Malik Willis.
I said they might make the NFC title game. I didn't say they would make the NFC title game.
Malik Willis beat the mayonnaise messiah in a revenge game, and he's sitting here talking about crowning him.
I'm not crowning anything. I'm
calm
saying
down, Daddy Green.
The whole point of my soliloquy there is that their roster around Malik Willis, who's not a good quarterback for the record, I think is much better than I thought it was. And when they get Jordan Love back,
are we sure that he's not a good quarterback? He played for the Titans. He's on a team.
I don't think anybody's.
I'm not sold Malik Willis, dude.
I don't think anybody is going to deny that the Packers have talent on their team. Like, I mean, they first off, they they almost went to the NFC title game last year. And they did things.
They beat the Cowboys. That's not.
I mean, no, they were in that game against the Niners deep into the third.
They got hot last year. I was still kind of skeptical because that team, half the year they looked mid, and they got hot late in the year.
The win over the Titans with Malik Willis is what did it for you.
No, it's less about. It's less about. It's less about Malik Willis. It's more about what I've seen last 2 weeks and how that team around elevated. That's all I'm saying.
I like how we preface it to it. No one's really talking about this.
Oh well,
because it's week 3.
No one,
right? Exactly.
Beat 2 shitty teams.
Well, I'm gonna talk about it now. So there you go.
They got games against Minnesota
this weekend,
Houston, Detroit.
More on that later.
We have some bigger games coming up. We'll also see if how Jordan Love can do. And here's the thing too. I mean, obviously Jordan Love came on strong late last year. Looked good against the Cowboys in the playoffs. But what offense isn't looking good against the Cowboys right now?
Yeah.
And then they struggled a bit. Made some mistakes at times against the Niners in that playoff game. So they're a talented team. That's where I will agree with you. I will not say anything about how deep into the postseason the Green Bay Packers can go after week 3 because that's absurd.
They are a really good defense.
They are a good defense. I will give them that. Joe says you might even say they could be a frisky team.
I'm thinking more than frisky at this point.
All right, Matt, what did you learn this past weekend?
I learned that Nick Sirianni still is just more concerned with being the smartest guy in the room than actually coaching to win the games. there's been 2 weeks in a row now where it's clear and concise what you need to do, and instead he tries to fool everyone so he can look like a genius to the ownership, to the GM, to the fans. I don't know who he's trying to prove this to at this point, but cost them the game against Atlanta. It almost cost them the game against New Orleans. And he just needs to finally get out of his own way at this point, or else we'll probably see similar results as last season.
Yeah, it was kind of a wild thing to watch with Philly on Sunday, and kind of seeing the struggle, the battle between coach and OC a little bit in some of those tight moments, and just some of the questionable decisions of, does analytics tell you we should kick here? Apparently, did Jake Elliott piss in Nick Sirianni's Cheerios or something?
Yes.
I'm not sure what the dynamic is there between kicker and coach, but yeah, a lot of some definite questionable.
If he just takes the field goal in Atlanta early on, they win that game. If he kicks the obvious field goals multiple this Sunday, they win against the Saints pretty easily. Instead, they needed a miracle comeback and a strong hell of a defensive effort just to overcome all of that.
Yeah.
Let me ask the Eagle fans on the panel here, not name me, of course. You two, how do you guys feel about Sirianni overall? How do you feel about Sirianni overall?
Well, if you hadn't asked this question 2 days ago and Sunday, we wouldn't have to rehash this.
Well, what's it just for content? We do it with content now.
Do we?
Yes.
I feel like we've already talked about this. My views on Sirianni are that what I just said, he needs to just get out of his own way. Do I think he should be on the hot seat? No. At this point in the season, no. If they have another collapse where it's evident that coaching played a role in why they were losing these games, then I think it's a fair conversation to have. And Philadelphia is a franchise that's not afraid to move off of more successful coaches if things turn sour quickly, and they are starting to turn sour for Nick.
Sean?
Well, I mean, I would. Is the mic working? Am I hot? We good?
You're good.
We got you.
Yeah, I would say, a good word might be skeptical. I think we've seen him at his best as kind of a motivator. Using the tools that he kind of inherited and that he put together, and kind of building this like sense of like team and excitement. And now we're past that. It's collapsed a little bit. Now you're asking him, he's going to have to do some work, and it's going to be a lot of X's and O's, and it's he's obviously put some new coordinators in place. And I was kind of thinking today earlier, I'm like, could some of it be the Kellen Moore scheme? Could some of the Hurts problems be a new system? Not to mention being asked to do a lot of the audible line of scrimmage stuff that Kelsey used to take care of. There's a lot on Hurts's plate. And I think on Sunday, a lot of times it was hard to kind of, when things were struggling offensively, it was hard to tell. Is this a Nick Sirianni problem, or is this a Jalen Hurts problem? And a lot of times at the end of the drive, I just went, yes, it is. Both of them. And it's, do I know that it's a permanent problem? No. Do I think Sirianni can get that locker room, back in shape? I do, and I hope he does. But if you start a slide anywhere similar to the slide we went on last year, things are going to collapse real quick.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure you're on it, and that schedule is not exactly friendly, the whole way through. So you're going to have some stumbling blocks, and you got to make sure that team understands, like, hey, we lost to a good team today. Let's beat the next one, and just kind of hope for the best. But the good news is it doesn't look like the NFC East is going to shape up quite the way anybody thought anyway. So you might have some more room for error than we had thought, as long as Jaden Daniels doesn't have too much to say about it.
Yeah, I think that win against New Orleans was huge win. I think if they lost that game, I think the Sirianni fucking chatter goes fucking up a massive notch. So
yeah,
it didn't stop.
Someone named Dallas had to do something else this weekend. So
right.
I mean, the chatter, I think, is just as loud because they only scored 14 against them. I don't know that and if the chatter gets louder because you lose to a team who's 3-0,
but it's because he's directly the reason why they lose. The decisions he made directly affected, like especially six days apart from what happened in the Atlanta game and into the New Orleans game. But
So here's the thing: head coaches directly affect every decision that teams make.
well,
I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes they get them right, sometimes they get them wrong. Here's the deal: Zach Taylor, perfect example last night, hit the nail on the head. But I've also watched Man Campbell go for it on 4th and 4 and run it with David Montgomery and only get 2 yards. But guess what? We're still sitting here talking about how good of a motivator and how good of a coach Man Campbell is.
Because go ahead, finish.
At the end of the day, Man Campbell gets his guys to play at a certain level. I get it. It's what he is. He's a psychopath. It is what it is. Nick Sirianni's decision-making has been questioned. I get it. But at the end of the day, he still has the offensive pieces around them to make them better. They kept a team that has scored 88 points, what it feels like the last 2 weeks, to 13.
91, yeah.
home?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and that's just it.
So
Going
they did-
forward,
so
they have a defense to rival Detroit
Right.
right now, and so
They
that's
did
going to
something
bail
right.
out some
Absolutely.
of those decisions.
I'm the one saying that I don't think the hot seat it should be warranted in the first place, personally. But that's not the reality. That's out there. Even fucking Matt tweets about it all the time on Twitter.
Well,
I mean,
good,
we're in a-
Charles. I'm glad to have you on board.
We're in a reactionary league, and social media certainly is going to amplify that to
Right.
the nth degree. And I mean, I can argue with dumbass Philly fans until I'm red in the face on Twitter. It's not going to change anything. I think ownership of the Eagles is at least smart enough to tune out that noise, just like a lot of people are smart enough to tune out that noise. Marcus Freeman being one of those that says, I'm not going to listen to what the fans are saying. I'm going to do what's best for the program.
Right.
But we've also seen the Philadelphia ownership move on from Doug Peterson shortly after a Super Bowl victory. I don't think that it's unheard of to question if
Very
the
aggressive.
Eagles would move on quickly.
I think the Dan Campbell comparison is warranted, but I think the Dan Campbell in comparison is still in a little bit of a honeymoon phase with Detroit. Whereas Sirianni, I think we're past that now.
Apparently not. I mean, he had to
Bro,
move
the
because he
Lions
was being
fans-
threatened.
Threatened him and he had to move. What the hell are you talking about? A honeymoon phase?
I mean,
The
that's all
honeymoon
overall.
ended week 2.
Yeah.
No.
The honeymoon phase started to end with some poor coaching decisions in last year's NFC title game. It
They said
ended earlier this year.
They said that the address they found the address from his daughter's classmate, I think it was, that leaked the address.
I don't
Yes,
care
a
what
deep-
reason
I
it
found
is.
out.
Wait, hold on. A Detroit Lion fan put out
Yeah,
Dan
imagine
Campbell's
like
address.
years ago telling
people
Detroit
showed up
Lions
to.
fans that someone was going to get mad enough that now keep in mind you're losing a playoff game after already winning playoff games,
Right.
and
You won the division. You won
For
playoff.
winning
you win
the
a division,
You
by
go
the way.
on the road
You
and
win a
lose the
division.
NFC title game.
win a playoff game, and then Detroit fans are going to be upset enough after a playoff loss
Yeah.
to send people to find out where the coach lives. I don't think anybody would have believed you for a second.
No.
No shot.
Joe says he learned that he wants Notre Dame to play on the road every week, given how they played at home. That's not wrong.
It's not a bad take.
That is not wrong at all.
I was frustrated, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but they played fine. I mean, they were 27.5-point favorites. They won by 25.
Yeah,
They took long to wake up, but they woke up. They won handily enough.
They got that
They
road
woke
trip
up.
Riz, road
Yeah.
trip Riz.
Yeah, it's yes. Did we envision the first 4 games of this season to look a little bit differently than they have? Sure. But if you were going to tell me that we'd win in Texas A&M, that we'd score 66 points in a win week 3, and we'd about cover a 27-point spread at home in week 4. I would take those. Obviously, the Northern Illinois loss, super bad. Nobody's ever going to defend that. It shouldn't try to be defended. You didn't show up. You probably got way too cocky, and you got humbled that day. Awesome. Now, the trick is you don't fall into that same trap. And because of the 12-team playoff, everything's still in front of you. You're going to be fine. You're 16th. You're playing number 15 this weekend. It's going to be okay. You win out, you're going to be just fine. Let's see. Jason here says, Dallas sucks. Somebody going to be fired when they lose to the Giants, and they should. Niners are in trouble with injuries. The Chiefs is safe to say a bad 3-0 team.
I would
At least
agree with
somebody
that.
else sees it. Sean, what did you learn this past weekend?
Well, I don't know if I learned it or was just reminded, but they always tell you that a win is a win. Winning heals everything. But to say that a win is a win and that's good enough, I feel like the Eagles this weekend reminded me that that's not always the case. I feel like like we've kind of alluded to, so we don't need to harp on it too long. There's a lot of problems at play there. And to just be like, well, we won the game, let's move on to the net. Like, if you're not addressing some of the things that happen. Now, do I think you can turn some positive praise and praise Fangio and the defense? Absolutely. I think that defense played lights out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really concerned that despite everything they had done, that a terrible penalty by an offensive lineman shoving Darius Slay into a bench was going to – I thought there was a chance that was going to cost us a game. As soon as he wasn't on Olave, there was nothing that we could do to stop him. And, it shows that, the right pieces might be in place, but it might remind you need a contingency plan. There's a lot of positives that went on. Dallas Goedert woke up primarily out of necessity, but, maybe that's a fire to kind of build on. But, I mean, if there's one thing I can tell you going forward is that if you're panicking or things aren't working, it sure looks like if you give Saquon Barkley 20 to 25 carries a game, you're going to be in a pretty good spot at the end of the fourth quarter. And so they can't go back. Week 2, I think we kind of got away from that against Atlanta and just kind of, I don't know, took it for granted that Saquon, could really carry an offense every drive if you need him to. I think they need to make sure he's involved and durability, whatever. You paid him a ton of money. Obviously, you think he's durable enough. You need to get him the ball.
Damn straight.
Yeah. The
Run the damn ball. I mean, that's what we always say for Notre Dame.
Run the dang ball, Bert.
I mean, I would take a bad win at this point. I don't know.
I'll take a bad one.
I would gladly take a bad win. I'd love to know what that looks like at this point. But
she said 3 bad wins, right?
Well, you're in luck because it looks like if you're the way you're playing, if you do win, it's probably going to be a bad one. So
yeah, no, that
might get your wish.
That is accurate. Maybe as soon as Thursday, but I have my doubts. But
yeah, you might.
The thing I learned this past week, and it's been a lot of time in the college game, and I don't know that there was a ton to learn this past weekend. Not the greatest slate of college games, but I might as well. I'll hit the button so you guys don't have to beat me to it.
Marge.
Michigan should probably their offense should probably just revolve around Khalil Mullen. That's probably would be a good plan for them. I know Matt said run the damn ball. It was a good plan against the USC Trojans. Always a good Saturday when you see USC lose.
The one time I'll root for Michigan.
There you
I
go.
was just going to ask you that. Who'd you root for again?
Well, if you would have listened to last
number one hated team for sure.
If you have paid attention to last week's picks, EJ, you would have known that.
Matt went 1-7 in college last week. He has won Michigan.
But he averaged almost 9. I think it was 9.4 yards per carry. Including a play in the fourth quarter where he drug a USC tackler about 10 yards. So yeah, maybe they should just think about just giving him the ball every time. Joe says,
that is the true answer, but unfortunately, one of those teams.
But in a world where college football does not allow for a tie, the answer is USC.
I mean, technically, for Notre Dame's sake, they should have probably rooted for USC to win just to help our future strength of schedule. But I mean, people are going to trash the Notre Dame strength of schedule, and that Northern Illinois loss it's really already demolished.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Argue anyway.
I mean, again, here's the thing: Notre Dame currently 16th. I understand that is the AP poll, not the college football playoff poll.
Oh, I can't wait to see how low they are there.
Oh wait, Kyle think it's too high.
Because we don't have it there. Well, Kyle says a lot of things. Like if you think an 11-1 Notre Dame team is not going to be in the first 12 team play, I don't care if USC loses the rest of their games. I don't care if Florida State loses and likely will the rest of their games. Like an 11-1 Notre Dame team, if you don't think they're going to be in the first 12 team playoff, You don't understand the business of
Yeah,
college.
the money behind it alone.
Oh yeah, they're going to get in.
Like,
Absolutely.
whether that's right or wrong, like that's a whole separate debate.
Because they know even if they're going to be a low seed and even hypothetically lose in the first round, that first round's going to get a ton of coverage and it's going to have a ton of people there.
For whatever team, I mean, whatever team would host it, at this point, I think it would. I don't have all the
some team from the SEC.
Yeah, because right now, Georgia 2, Bama 4. So I guess it would be Notre Dame at Alabama. You don't think that game's gonna, you don't think the college football playoff committee is not gonna dream that one up? Yeah, get real.
I mean, especially if it's LSU. That's
family,
right? Like, or somehow if the script would flip, but I don't know that it would at this point. You'd have to have a lot of help above you. But Brian Kelly coming back.
That would be amazing.
The South Bend would be wild as well.
Before we move on, though, Jim, I do also want to say one other thing that I learned, and shout out to Mike as the resident Red Tails representative during the NFC East preview, is the Red Tails have themselves a quarterback. Goodness. Yeah. Don't mess this one up like you did with RG3. If there's a nick to that knee, you put him in bubble wrap and sit for the season.
Yeah,
so what? He's just supposed to not play home games then?
Correct. Or go to the Meadowlands.
That's right.
More games in New Jersey. Yeah, you don't want to play that.
Yeah, no,
But you assume the curse what Dan Snyder left with it. So hopefully, for their sake, anyway.
The stadium's still a dump, but yeah.
Been to that shithole quite a few times.
Look, I know. I think it was. I think it was the NFC's preview when we were, or maybe the NFL preview as a whole, when I was talking about how I thought Dallas at 9-8, which now looks completely laughable, but that I thought that Washington, if they win a game or two here, that Dallas doesn't, Washington could easily be the number 2 in the NFC East, and. After a couple of weeks, I mean, I don't want to knee jerk like EJ. I'm not, I don't want to blow one out here.
You heard today, then, didn't you?
But, I think that the thing I'm concerned about is Dallas might be the worst team in the NFC East right now.
Stop. Well, we know Thursday, but stop.
I said what I said.
Stop. But I will say this much though: unlike the last 3 years, where I've said, "Don't worry about it. The Cowboys be fine. 10+ wins." I'm a little more concerned this year about that. I think that's in very much jeopardy this year,
and rightly so.
And that schedule is not pretty.
It's nothing to do with the schedule. I mean, if the Saints are as fraudulent as you act like they are, the Cowboys got boat raced by them.
Yeah,
right. Like, so it doesn't even matter what the schedule is.
I mean, after this Giants game on Thursday, you have
I'm well aware.
Detroit. Was it Detroit, San Francisco, and Pittsburgh? And I know that's not order, but those are 3 teams after that.
Well, I mean, what the Niners are the walking wounded at this point, so.
Right? So we'll see how they look like at that time of the game. But
it gets rough real quick.
Yeah. So I think the 10+ might be in jeopardy definitely this year.
Oh, that team, they are not making the playoffs.
Especially when you see how they look last first 3 weeks.
So after this week, they go to Pittsburgh, home against Detroit, to San Francisco, to Atlanta, home against Philly, home against Houston, at Washington.
God. And the Washington might be, dude. Like I said,
that's a gauntlet there.
I said that McCarthy might be gone before Halloween. He might be gone before the middle of October. I mean, it's
Jim. Who do I send my resume to? I have plenty of good NCAA football clips to send to Jerry.
Jones at I'mAnIdiot.net.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, Jerry's
you're right.
I think it is now.
For the first time, I'll agree with you, Jim, on that. On the panic.
It's not good. It is really not good.
Not great, Bob.
Jay Jones at Oil Money doesn't buy common sense.
Not great, Bob.
Yeah, that is the understatement of the year. Anything else you guys learned from the weekend that was?
No.
I learned lots of stuff, but let's just go.
That's just life things.